Yo, what's going on, everybody? Hope you're not sick of me by now. It's the second live stream of the day, and we're coming at you for Dana White Contender Series week number 8. And of course, on the show, we cannot do it alone for Contender Series. For the last few years, if you've been following along, myself and Gordo Gambles have been holding it down on this platform. We're back once again to do it. Gordo in the building. How are you feeling, my brother?
I'm doing good, man. It's a good day of some Monday Night Football going on in the background. We're sweating out some matchups, and it got some Dana White Contender Series. There's only a few weeks left. We're taking them all in. We're enjoying some fights, and we've been having fun doing so. Let's look to keep these good times rolling and continue to cash some tickets here.
Absolutely. The reads have been dialed, and we've been doing a pretty good job picking these underdogs, finding a couple winning prop methods as well. And now we have a Canadian on the card, so we'll see if we can get a Canadian winner finally for our brother Gordo. But he's
We
got a
will get.
tough customer in Jacoby Smith, and we've got plenty to talk about. But there's somebody that everybody's waiting for, a very popular name in the chat, a very sought after name in the community. Pierce in the building, our brother from another. How are you, my man? It wouldn't be a great panel without the man of the hour. Pierce, what's going on, brother?
Oh, I'm just here to give my boy Gordo some emotional support because Canada's got a tough one tomorrow. But you know, if they
We need it.
win, they like Gordo said, they need it. And we're gonna find out real quick. First fight of the night. So Gordo's either gonna have a great rest of the card or we gonna be in the pits. But we gonna find out for sure.
One thing that I have to do off the rip here, and this is something that we do not normally do, but we are going to make a audible in real time because I'm not sure that my man has seen this yet. So in real time, we're going to present something to our guy Pierce because he got a shout out from Michael Aswell, who was on the Contender Series earlier this year, guys. If you guys can hopefully see this on screen, it says good research and prediction from Pierce. Could tell he knows and understands the game. So a vote of confidence from our boy Michael Aswell in the YouTube comment section. I wanted to go give him some grief because, I got it right. I said Bogdan Grad was going to take him down a couple of times. That was the difference maker. He did take him down a couple of times, but ultimately I went the high road. I said, you know what? Pierce is a great analyst. You're absolutely right. And thanks for watching the show. So the truth is that was a cool moment. And Pierce, the floor is yours, my brother. Congratulations.
Well, thank you, Michael, as well. If you're watching this, I don't even know if I bet. I might have bet Grad that fight if I'm being honest. But hey, real
He still
recognizes
liked
real.
the analysis. He still liked the
He really
analysis. And
did.
what you had said and what I agreed on was whoever was plus money was probably the side, right? We thought Aswell had the advantage in cardio and the striking fundamentals, but I had said he was a little bit basic, right? He didn't really mix in those other tools. And I do think he's a young guy. He's going to mix in those things in the future. He'll be back. I also tried to iterate that in my point to him earlier. Shout out to our guy Hype MMA as well. I believe Michael Aswell had some positive comments on his breakdown as well. So it's cool to see guys like that. Chad Hellinger, another guy in the past. Victor Hugo, some friends of the show that have come back and commented on our Contender Series breakdowns and said, hey, great job, fellas. And that's always cool to see. So
Were you
we
there?
wanted to
Were you
just shout
there
out
when
Michael Aswell.
Yeah, shout out to him, bro. We're gonna see him in the UFC for sure. That dude puts on scraps. But were you doing Dana White Contender Series breakdowns when Darius Flower was making his lap around the YouTube
He
community?
came on my show, bro. He was on the show with Liam, I, and Narco.
No fucking way. Was he like live on the show?
Oh, he was live on the live stream. He was in my comment section. He's like, hey, bro, drop the link. I'll join up on the show. I'm like, and he hops in, bro. He talked his shit. And then after that, he tried to hit us up for some PayPal. So I don't know what's going on there. But
He was
Hey,
like, if I won y'all some bets, hit me on PayPal. It was honestly, I respected the move.
hey,
Although, as
Dana
Alex
said,
Pereira said, I won't ask for money when you win because I will not give you money if you lose.
Dana said they stopped doing the betting because of James Krause. I think it was because Darius Flowers cast a big bet on that plus 400 money line. I'll tell you that much.
he did
Hell
better
yeah,
than,
man.
than, than Justin James did. So we'll see.
I absolutely love it, gentlemen. Well, without further ado, why don't we get into the action this week? And we've got a great one to start us off. We've got the Canadian. I honestly don't even feel like I should give this pronunciation. So why don't we kick this to Gordo first, the resident Canadian on the program? Why don't you break down this matchup and tell us who we're talking about? I could tell you that Jacoby Smith is an All-American from Oklahoma State. I could tell you that he's a great wrestler, a physical freak, very strong. He's got knockout power, a little bit reckless, a little bit green, but ultimately he's got insane athletic upside and probably some great takedowns. But why don't you tell us about his opponent here, the Canadian with a great name and a name that will roll off the tongue of Gordo Gambles, my brother.
You mean Christian Savoy? We can go out here talk about that. A little French accent to it. But you know what? He's a newfie, bro. That's what he is. He comes out here. He is a tough dude. And you know what? You wouldn't see Jacoby Smith hanging out at a bar, but you damn bet Christian Savoy would be there to kick your ass at that bar. I'll tell you that right now. And what he wants to do is he wants to go out there and get in a scrap. This dude will throw down. And you know what? I did tape him first. I'm not going to lie. I go out there. I'm like, okay. You know what? This guy can go out here. He can scrap. He can throw bombs. He does throw a lot of power. I do think he potentially does slow down. That is because he's so aggressive early on. His takedown game could definitely use work, but he's a guy who can go out there and land bombs if people go out there and exchange with him. And I'm like, okay, you know, I didn't look at the odds. I'm like, Canada, come on, guys. We need this. Yeah, no, I don't know, man. Jacoby Smith is a killer, bro. Like, Jacoby Smith was someone who I was extremely impressed by watching tape, and I don't say that lightly. I've been trying to be a lot more critical, a lot throwing the honest opinion in there, but he looked good. I watched the tape and I fell in love with his hands early. He's got very good hand speed, good in out movement. He seems to be falling in love with him as well. And you look at that wrestling pedigree too, and I know he has that in his back pocket. The guy is someone who is not only an athletic freak, but a guy who can put it all together very well, compete on the feet, have the cardio, go out there, do rounds too, and has a phenomenal takedown game, to which I just mentioned was the weakness for someone like Christian Savoy. So I do think it is a showcase spot for Jacoby Smith, who does seem to have a very bright future. He's got good hand speed to compete with someone like Savoy up there, but also a huge ground game advantage, a better cardio aspect, and just pure athleticism, and does seem to be the A side of this matchup. Now, I will say I do think Jacoby Smith's striking is still a bit green. If he does want to go out there and exchange in the pocket, the one thing Savoy does have is a decent chin and the ability to push forward. I just think it's a very low opportunity outcome. So, although I do not think the read is there, I will be cheering for my boy Savoy this weekend. I will sit here. I will wear the Canada shirt. I will wear the Canada hat. And you know what I'll say, Liam? You know what I'll say? I'll say fucking A. Just fucking A, bud. Go out there and swing. Have a good time. Put the pedal to the metal and make Newfie proud. And he is a guy who I hope goes out there and does so. It's tough sledding for the kid right now. So we're hoping for the best. Jacoby Smith is like a real prospect. So I don't know if I want to get in his way. That's all I got on this one. Let's go Canada. I'm picking Jacoby Smith, unfortunately. I will say the odds are not up here. I do have a potential lean on this spot, despite not me wanting to go against Canadian, but holy, Jacoby Smith looks like the real deal. And Pierce, and if I know you're going next, I just need to make sure as you break this down, the Canadian flag in front of you, I got to hear at least 2 sorries and 3 A's. All right.
Yeah, bro,
We now have the odds up in front of us, just so you know, guys. If you'd like to reference them, here they are.
Yeah, pretty big favorite. Seems to be for good reason. My question I know Liam has not seen the odds yet at all. The one prop I do see in this one, if we get a minus 625 favorite in Jacoby Smith, who, although he does not have a submission win on his record, is going to be the predominant wrestler, and you can get the submission line at plus 1,000. That seems to be a decently wide line for someone in Savoy whose only loss does come by submission. So I do not mind that spot there.
Yeah, that's very interesting. We'll kick it over to Pierce before I give my thoughts on this matchup. And I will say, you guys know me. I'm a weirdo in terms of how I break down these fights. I go down rabbit holes. I go in weird directions. Sometimes I have one fight I haven't really taped. The fight that I've done the least amount on is the main event. This fight, I actually have a lot of research that I've done. So we're going to kick it over to Pierce first. What do you think about this one, brother?
Gordo, sorry. This is an awful matchup for your boy, bro. I mean, I got the Canada flag in the back, but don't get it twisted. I am not betting on Savoy. And there's 2 things wrong with Canada in this matchup. Why they spell the name Christian like that, I do not know. And Christian? They do not know how. Christian IEN. I've never seen that in my life. And Christian? Am I saying? Christian. And the Canadians don't know how to spell Christian, and they don't know how to wrestle. And this is probably one of the biggest squash match of the season, if I'm being honest. I mean, last week we had Titties going up against Bailey Schoenfelder. Now that was a squash match in my eyes. Looking before the fight, that's what it looked like they were trying to do, but it didn't work out that way. And this is one that I think it doesn't matter what happens. I think Jacoby Smith's got to fucking tear an ACL if he's losing this matchup against Christian. And I just think this is honestly just easy pickings for Jacoby, man. You got a D1 wrestler, All American. I mean, he was at Liam. Correct me if I'm wrong. All American at Oklahoma State, correct?
That's correct.
Yeah, so it's like he's not like D2, D3. This is D1 All American, and when you
Hey,
look at
don't denigrate, okay? Aljamain Sterling is a D3 wrestler, right?
what
Portland
wasn't Josh
University, stand up.
was wasn't Josh Freeman All American in D3, bro? I question the legitimacy of some of these wrestling programs in Division 3, but I'm not going to trash on nobody. But yeah, Jacoby, man, it's like you look at his game, it's all wrestling. I mean, I know he got 2 straight quick knockouts his last fight. The dude has power in his hands. I'll give him that. But I mean, when you watch Savoy's fight against Dokash, yeah, I was shocked to see that fight was a draw. I had to double take who each guy was, and I had to go to the introductions because I'm like, is the guy getting mauled the one being brought in on Contender Series? And it's like the ref. I think I commented on the video. I think the ref bet Savoy money line. That's why he took as many points as he did in that fight. But that looked like a 30-27 clear as day, and it somehow was a draw. And I mean, that's honestly all you really need to see in this matchup is that yeah, I mean, on the feet, Savoy, he throws hard. It's not really technical. He kind of just goes for it, and I respect that. If Jacoby's going to stand and trade in the pocket, I mean, he's going to give him his path, bro. Just don't pull a Bailey Schoenfelder and just go for takedowns. And I don't know if the total is a bit interesting. It's 1.5 is set at minus 170 for the over. I'm not sure if I want to play the under there, but yeah, if I had to pick a bet on the fight, it'd be a round 1 prop for Jacoby or the under. It's just when you bet on these like college wrestlers turned MMA fighters, it's like a lot of them don't have the submission upside, so you're kind of banking on like a ground and pound finish from Jacoby here, which I think is possible. The dude hits hard. He's got good ground and pound. And if I had to pick a minus 600 to win, I'd probably do the under 1.5. That's probably how he covers. But yeah, no strong takes on any bets on that fight.
I think this is interesting. My guy Dixon is looking for the contrarian take. Is this another goes to decision, right? Like Nick Piccinini. I think there's a few things that are a little different about this matchup. Number one being Nick Piccinini was taking on a guy who's a pretty like crafty and like long-standing MMA fighter. That guy had a lot of fights and then disappeared for a while, and he had some problems in his personal life, things like that. But it wasn't like he wasn't a talented enough guy. My questions about him were, was he going to have cardio? Is he going to be able to hold up? And honestly, he did way better than I expected in a lot of those categories on Contender Series and made it an honest fight. So hats off to him, right? I do think that this Canadian guy is in good shape, right? I think he's showing up with a lot of, willingness and purpose. He's got some knockout power, but, the footage is just bad, right? Like that referee basically saved. Honestly, I thought he was in a position where he could have been stopped. And then the guy just like intervenes because he says shots to the back of the head. I mean, like when you talk about legal strikes in mixed martial arts, we got to understand there's a difference between hitting somebody in their brainstem, dropping an elbow like in the center of their spine or something, when you're hitting somebody on their own gloves on the side of their head. That's like most TKO finishes in MMA, right? Like if you just look at the vast majority of ground and pound stoppages, it's somebody holding a rear waist from turtle and just punching somebody that's on the ground, like crumpled up, 2 hands over their head. And so I looked at that and I was like, man, like he took him away from a potential finishing position. And then the guy still beat his ass all night. And then he gets robbed to a draw. The guy couldn't believe it at the end of the fight. And he got a bunch of points taken away. It was a complete fugazi. So you have that stacked on top of the fight prior to that. And that was not a good look either. I'm talking about the Christian Savoy fight against Basil Hafez. And Basil Hafez, good fighter, right? Not a bad fighter at all. We've seen he can go out there and get takedowns. But the way he was able to take him down, pass the guard multiple times, get in these good positions. I mean, he was honestly going for like meme-like submissions, like mounted arm bars and triangles right off the rip because he just felt very comfortable attacking this guy. And he made a few mistakes. Like he fell off the top. He did a couple things sideways, but I don't think that Jacoby's going to do any of that, right? Like he's the opposite of that in terms of he's a wrestler, not a jiu-jitsu guy, not a guy who's, credited with this black belt and he wants to go out there and show his techniques and look for triangles from underneath. I don't see any of that. I could see him going for a rear naked choke here if this guy just shells up, turns away, gets into a rear waist cinch, and he grabs him from behind, something like that. But for the most part, Jacoby just comes out swinging crazy and he tries to kill people. And that is a good system for getting a contract on Contender Series. But from a downside perspective, I do think he has the makings of somebody who could gas out really bad on Contender Series. He's shown a pretty violent game. He comes out explosive. I think there's a lot of the right elements, but the one thing I worry about is the fight that he had. Let me go back and look at his record because I don't want to speak out of turn, but I watched a bunch of tape on Jacoby.
Probably the Lewis
and I'm high
fight
on him. The
Le'Veon Lewis. Yep.
No, actually, you'll be surprised, dude. It was the Tommy Britton fight. And now he beat Tommy,
goodness.
Just every which way but loose, right? But it was the shot selection. It was the way he was throwing. Honestly, they stopped that fight and Tommy Britton protested at the time. I don't know if you remember. He was not happy with the stoppage because he was trying to let the guy unload and get tired. And now you can't do that, right? It's eligible for stoppage when you do that. But I do think that this is the kind of spot where, you saw in that fight, Jacoby Smith was out there winging huge uppercuts, taking these huge chances. His hands were down. He was swinging wild. What did we just see last week? Big favorite, guy who probably had more skill, but you get clipped early. What do they say? If you're a black belt, you get punched in the face, you're a purple belt. I mean, whatever happened to Schoenfelder, he just wasn't there anymore, right? He was seeing ghosts. And I'm not saying that it's the same situation. It's not a one-to-one. I think Jacoby Smith is a better prospect than Bailey Schoenfelder by a mile, right? But you just look at the downside risk of you're on Contender Series where the incentive structure is go out there, get an early knockout, swing like crazy, do something wild, impress the boss. If you do that and then you don't get it, then it could turn into what Dixon said. Either he's grinding on this guy, just getting the easy takedowns. I do think takedowns are free against this guy personally for Jacoby, unless he's completely gassed out here. So that's for me why he's such a big favorite here. On the feet, I think he could knock him out. I think it would be a competitive, honest fight. I think he could take him down and ground and pound him. I think he could surprise people with a submission. I did not like the ground game I saw from Savoy. However, he's training at Champions Creed. If I'm talking Canadian MMA and I'm giving some love and respect, it's to my guy, Chad and Hellinger and the Champions Creed folks. They've done a pretty good job of developing prospects over time. So let's see what they have to offer here. But overall, I think Jacoby Smith is going to get the job done, and I would not be surprised by any method of victory. I just think he's got a lot of advantages, and the takedown upside, I feel, will be substantial. Anything you guys want to add before we move to the next fight?
Thoughts and prayers to Canada here. Hopefully see one go through the hoop. Yeah, we got to have it. What I will say is if you are seeing potential value on Savoy, which I'm not, I don't know how much either of us are in the spot here. I do believe this to be a spot where Jacoby's going to get steamed the next day. I mean, we saw Shannon Clark, Canadian legend, get bet up to minus 2,000 the day of. We saw Bailey Schoenfeld get some action last week. But I think it's a spot where a lot of people are trying to see, are beginning to see who the A side of the matchup is, who the better wrestler, who the guy with better pedigree is here. And I do think because of that, a lot of money is going to come in his way. So typically I like to wait for domestics, but I don't know how much better line I'm going to get on a sub line for Jacoby. So I might take it early.
Yeah, somebody asked in the chat, I think it's a great question. Local man shakes fist. At what price do you have interest, though, is the question. I would say anything over 10-1 is probably just off in a welterweight fight between two people that don't have that much professional experience. Jacoby Smith still working with under 10 professional fights, and most of them have ended pretty early. So for that reason, I would say, maybe slight tempered expectations. You can't get ahead of yourself in mixed martial arts. I say it all the time. But also, I just think that there is a pretty big, I talk about sometimes if somebody's a striker, right? They don't really have the tools to cover these big prices, but there are worlds in which Jacoby Smith takes this guy down for 14 minutes, and then it does look like he covers the price. You know what I'm saying? Or he just finishes him in round one by taking him down and getting to a dominant position. So for those reasons, I think there is some negative downside to him looking like a massive favorite, but shout out to Real Fight Picks as Jacoby being minus 600, silly, fair play. Weird they
So the
got
doofy
Smith
was.
listed at 6'2" on Tapology when he's like 5'10". Yeah, fair enough. So a couple of dissenters in the chat, and maybe that's why the line hasn't run yet. Gordo, there's some people that like the dog here, and I mean he does look big, he looks strong, he looks physical, but I do think there's a huge pedigree difference in the wrestling. So let's see how it shakes out. The cardio is always a question mark for me with these wrestlers because I'll tell you guys, it's a way different sport to go out there and wrestle for 7 minutes and to fight for 15. And a lot of times you see wrestlers that can wrestle for 7 minutes in MMA and then they get finished in round 3. So just one thing to think about. Local man shakes fist, agrees with me. Plus 1,000 has potential. Don't know anyone who actually bets that is thinking about betting the dog. Yeah, fair enough. Okay, well, next fight, guys. We've got Abdallah Erami taking on Torres Finney. And you guys know this is the last chance university, right? This is the last time that we will see Torres Finney on Contender Series this season. And it is contract or go home season for Torres Finney. He is 9-0 as a professional. He's taking on Abdallah Erami, who is 7-1. And the younger man is Torres Finney. The smaller man, of course, is Torres Finney. He's the smaller man in virtually every matchup. And as I kick it to my brother Gordo to break down this matchup, we will switch the board here for the Contender Series and show off our meeting of our matchup here. This is Torres Finney on your left-hand side of the screen taking on Abdallah Erami. What do you think about this matchup, Gordo?
I said it last time too. People have told me I do look like Torres Finney, and I'm getting to see it, man. I kind of got it going, but I think it's a spot where we got him again, man. We've seen him a few times. He is one of the more known faces on Dana White Contender Series, not only because he's got 2 wins here so far, but because of his build. Like, the guy's a likable character. He is huge. He pushes through a cardio barrier to go out there and try to win fights, and he has been successful doing so, but not successful enough to go out here and secure himself a contract. And he comes out here for a third time to be able to do so. And how often do we get the opportunity to go out here and get guys who are undefeated, already have 2 wins in a Contender Series, but don't have the contract? That kind of tells you what a lot of this stuff is to him here. What we have at heart is a guy in Torres Finney who is a very solid wrestler. He uses his physicality more times than not. And I think that maybe solid wrestler is interesting because he doesn't have the most technicality at it, but he's got brute strength. He's got a good ability to push through the cardio barrier. He's got the good ability to just wear on people, win minutes, win optics. His last fight wasn't the most entertaining, but he was able to push through it. And his first appearance, he was able to go out there and lock up that submission, but he does seem to be like a guy who potentially does have flaws. I know Pierce is a big Torres Finney guy, and on all respect to him, but I do think Torres Finney is someone who, as Dana White alluded to, may get smoked by some guys in the UFC. There it is. But you throw me off, man. You throw me off. This is a complete 180 to the background you had one last week, man. I'll just tell you that. But Torres Finney is a guy who I do think has the capability to go out there and wrestle at a high clip, utilize that physicality, look at those finishes, but is going to have to go out there and do so in this matchup because he has been criticized by Dana White. He's been brought on to go out here and try to do better than last time. And I think because of that, we have ourselves a hopefully differently motivated guy in Torres Finney. I didn't expect much from Erami doing that tape. I thought he was going to be brought in here to potentially see if Torres Finney can pass the test. I didn't mind Cam Rousen last time, and I didn't know how Erami was going to be, but I didn't mind his striking. I think the guy's got good power and close. He's got the ability to knock anybody's lights out, solid physicality in his own right. His one flaw is that takedown defense, and I do think that it could be something against Finney here, but I think he's got power. I think he's got solid cardio. I think he's someone who I still like to see improvements from, but I am struggling with this fight because I did want to look into it. I did want to back Torres Finney, but straight up, you guys can disagree with me. I think the line's wrong. I will probably end up with a bet here on Erami this week. I know Torres Finney is the A side, like Liam's going to pick up there, but I think in a spot where Dana White is motivating Finney to go out there and throw hands and be more entertaining and try to show him that he is worthy of a UFC contract, going out there and exchanging with a guy like Erami is a bad decision. Erami is going to be the better striker. I think Finney leaves his head out on the center line too often, although he's able to push through adversity and go out there and get those takedowns. I think on the feet, I favor the power, the clinch game of someone like Erami, and I do think he's able to go out there potentially in that finishing shot. If Torres Finney commits to a 100% grapple heavy game plan, I think he can win this fight. However, I think in doing so, he is putting his contract at risk because it's not going to give him the most entertaining style. So in doing so, I think he leaves himself open on the feet. I think he wants to go for that beautiful looking KO shot. I think Arami is live to get the win. I think I ended up picking him outright. And because of the pace that I think Finney's going to try to bring to get that contract, I also think the fight doesn't go is live at a good price. I don't like to go against Finney. I think he's a cool dude. But I'm surprised by the way this line is.
Interesting thoughts from Brother Gordo. What do you think, Pierce? Do you agree or disagree?
Honestly, I don't think I can disagree with what Gordo is saying, man. It's like I love Finney too, man. He seems like a great guy, the type of guy you grab a beer with and you have a good night. But breaking down fights at the end of the day, and I'm trying to figure out what Rami's gonna look like when he's facing a type of wrestler like Finney, and that's kind of like the question. We don't really know. I know some people will be like, yeah, Rami got dropped and mounted his last fight against this dude in PFL Europe. But one thing about Rami, it's like he's kind of scrambly. He's not like a battle giraffe Cam Ralston where he's playing jujitsu off his back. I mean, I know there's only like 3 fights available from Rami. I wish I could find the decision fight where back in 2022. Couldn't find that. I guess that's would be valuable data if anybody can find that. But I don't know. I think Rami is he's in the right weight class. He fought in the PFL Europe tournament at like 205 pounds, and you can see in this face-off photo he looks in shape. And if he can keep it on the feet, man, I think he can probably hurt Finney in the pocket. But it's like there is still questions on Rami, man. It's like I don't know what his wrestling's gonna be like against someone like Finney, and it's like, but at the same time, it's plus 190 near and plus 200, and it's like Finney has a style where it's like he doesn't have jujitsu, so he's either gonna lay on top of Rami and win like maybe a boring decision or maybe breaks him late, but it's like Rami could just like turn his back and stand up, and Finney's not putting in hooks or anything, so it's like I'm willing to maybe find out how this Rami dude's takedown defense is at plus 200 against someone in Finney who makes a lot of mistakes on the feet. I mean, even in the against that Russian Panfarov, I mean, he was getting hurt. And then the Ralston fight, which was not how you want to see a minus 600 look in Dana White Contender Series. And I know Dana was a bit harsh on his words, but it's kind of fascinating they're bringing him back after how much shit Dana talked about him. But I wish him the best, man. Maybe third time's the charm, but from the betting market perspective, man, it's clear dog or pass. It's just I don't know. Rami could look like an awful bet if he's shit off his back, but yeah, I don't know. I'm willing to find out and fade Finney at plus 200.
Okay, so we got a strong panel take on the underdog here, who is the bigger man here, Abdullah Arami. I will say the one thing that stood out to me is number one, Abdullah Arami is really not fighting very many tough guys. If you look at his record, he's fought a lot of Fugazis. When he did step up in competition, he got dropped badly in that fight. I think that guy got a little overzealous, got over his skis, tried to chase him down, and then got hit with some big shots in his own right. But I have a feeling that, number one, I do think Torres can take this guy down based on what I saw on tape. I think Pierce makes some interesting points, some things I hadn't really thought of in terms of maybe he could just get back up to his feet because of the lack of jiu-jitsu. But I do think that there is a non-distinct possibility that, Torres Finney goes out here and just swings a wild hook and knocks this guy dead because you just see that his chin is not the best, right? And the one thing about cutting weight is it gives and it takes. Typically, I do think that this might be the right weight class. I'm open to that possibility. But the one thing is he was able to recover from a big shot up at 205. At 185 after cutting 20 pounds of water. Are you going to feel the same way? I'm not sure. Is he going to be able to react to the shots the same way? I don't know. And I think that when I'm looking at this fight, I say the Avasio D'Onofrio fight, they were swinging a little bit wild. There was some crazy exchanges. He was getting overextended in some grappling exchanges and making some weird decisions. Then the Madeline Privaluski fight, that's the one where he got dropped most recently. I could not find the footage of the Arturs Ozolins fight, but he did get finished by a 2-3 fighter at the time. The Frank Munoz fight, I watched that one back. I wasn't really blown away by that one either. So I didn't think he was the best fighter I watched on tape. I didn't think that the quality of competition was that high, but I could see what you guys are saying in terms of just Torres' ceiling. If you don't have great jiu-jitsu, if your control style grappling isn't that effective, if your cardio is running out in rounds 2 and 3, it could get dicey for sure. But I don't know, exactly what I can expect from Rami when he's facing real resistance. My guy Jewish Better says Rami by sub, interesting angle. So yeah, definitely a lot of love from the Sharp Chat and our guests for the Rami side. So I'll watch a little bit more tape and see if I'm swayed here. What I can say is I watched very little Torres Finney tape because he's a guy who I'm pretty familiar with his game. But I'll go back and revisit and just watch these Contender Series fights and see exactly what we're dealing with. But he does have a couple knockouts regionally, so I think he has some power in his hands and the athletic build to go out there and just put hands on this guy early, swinging wild, and put him down. Please, Gordo, go ahead.
I just want to talk about that submission. It's just hard to submit somebody with no neck, right, man? Those traps, they'll get up there. They'll block that submission real quick. So I'm just saying that would be very impressive.
I mean, don't you think we should touch on the fact that obviously, the mental side of things, we honestly nobody can cap that, but he just took a lot of shit from Dana about how boring of a fighter he is. What happens if Torres Finney just comes in and just swings dicks with Rami? I mean, that could be a possibility, honestly.
And that's what I'm saying too, is like he could not only get clipped in a situation like that, but he could go forward and land a powerful shot. I don't think Rami's perfect. I just think he's a guy with a ton of power. And for that reason, I have alluded to that fight doesn't go the distance line. I do think he goes out there and does push a pace. If it does potentially close up or look better, some local bucks might get towards that. But I do think that this is a fight where Torres Finney goes out there for broke, and I do think that could cost him. That's just why I think the line may be wide.
I think you might be better off playing the under if you like the fight doesn't go route, because you got minus 200 fight doesn't go, and then under 1.5 is like plus 130, plus 140 right now. So it's not a bad look, because honestly, you can give both these guys finish and upside here.
Could.
I don't think that's a bad idea. Also, there's not a lot of props released on this fight, so I'm not going to share all my thoughts on the props, but I think that there's going to be value in the finishing props for these guys based on the incentive structure of the fight, like you guys mentioned. And just looking at the chin dynamic, like I think he's got power. I do think he's got some skills. That's why he's here. That's why the PFL recruited him as well. But if you listen to his interviews and stuff, I was seeing headlines like, I fight because I need the money, and he's going out there trying to win 100,000 at 205 pounds. And, he's getting bounced around a little bit. I just think that the guy is willing to take a lot of risks, and they're signing him up against the guy who needs to kind of pay off on a big risk in this one, in Torres Finney. So I think both guys are capable of maximizing, but it does feel to me like it's Torres Finney, probably stopping him, but we'll see how it goes, man. I'm excited to watch that fight. And I've never been the biggest Torres Finney guy, but he's got a lot of experience in this Apex. He's coming out there raring to go. And I do think that if you just swing hammers with this guy, at worst, it's a 50-50. And, I think that because he's going to be confident, familiar with the territory, ready to go, I think he could come out here and just knock this guy out. But let's see how it plays, man. All right, fellas. Next up, let's get back to square one, and we'll share this tab. We're talking about David Martinez taking on Xavier Franklin. And I wanted to shout out, we had somebody in our chat earlier today say he grew up with Xavier Franklin. Xavier Moneyline is the play. Shout out to JJA1 in the chat representing for his guy. We always love to see that. And if you guys have people that you know and love on the card that you're rooting for, go ahead and hit us in the chat with that. But we've got David Martinez 10-1 taking on 5-0 Xavier Franklin. That's a pretty cool, distinction for a guy with just a 5-0 record to already be getting the call up to Dana White Contender Series. I do think that shows, some faith in him, some belief in him from the matchmakers, but also it's a tough ask, right? You got to go out there and take on a guy with double the professional experience, a guy who's fought pretty quality opponents in combate at times. Axel Ozuna, an example of that. He's fought experienced opponents as well. However, the Gianni Vasquez loss doesn't age very well, right? Kind of a middling regional level fighter. So I'm interested to hear what you guys have to say. First, we'll kick it to our brother Pierce on this one to mix things up. How do you feel about this matchup, my man?
I'm agree with our boy in the chat, bro. Xavier Franklin money line. We gonna take that shit to the bank, bro. It's gonna be highway robbery. So when I looked at this matchup, there was a lot of talk around the town about how this David Martinez guy's the next man up from Mexico, how he's hyped up prospect from Combate, and that he's gonna make a wave in the UFC. And then I watch his tape, and it's like Yeah, I mean, he's got a cool highlight reel. He's got good a lot of his KOs come from that big right hand. He's got great counters, and that's one thing I'll give him. But one thing I didn't like about him is like before he finds these KOs, it's like he's a bit underwhelming at range. I feel like he doesn't fill the space too well. He's I feel like some he can be outworked if that makes sense. Well, I think he has good counters. I think a guy in Xavier Franklin is going to be pushing the pace on him, man. I was going in here thinking that this Martinez guy was being set up to win, but then when you watch the Franklin tape, man, this kid's good, man. He's like the little engine that could, man. He's just forward pressured, work the body, and then he brings his shots up top. And I really like his forward pressure and speed in this matchup, man. I know Martinez is kind of someone who will rely on the lateral movement and move side to side and just kind of pick his counters, but I mean, I feel like the way to beat him is you just got to stay in Martinez's face and you really got to push the pace on him. And I feel like someone in Xavier Franklin, who's been in 5-round fights before, he's been into the championship rounds and he just continues to march forward. He's got good wrestling as well. I mean, I wouldn't put it past him to maybe look for some takedowns here. I know in the Axel Asuna fight, we saw Axel get mount in the 3rd or 4th round. And I mean, Xavier's the type of guy where it's like he has good counter wrestling as well. So I know maybe if the pressure's not working off, you can maybe sprawl on a takedown and look to take the back there. But I just like this kid's pace, man. I like how he sets up his shots. He's gonna work the body, and I really think he's gonna he could break David down the stretch, man. I don't know. I feel like this line's worst case pick 'em. Honestly, I was maybe giving Xavier Franklin like 55% here. I just think his style is a lot more effective in this matchup where I know I'm going to be having the guy that's pushing the pace, that's going forward. Whereas David, he's probably going to rely on that counter. And if it doesn't come, man, he could be getting outworked down the stretch. So I it's kind of hard for me to gauge like how much someone should bet at the current line, but I did play Franklin pretty large at plus 200 on Sunday. So I don't know. I think you could maybe give him minus 130 here. And if I'm looking at props to attack on this fight that I think are kind of off, I saw his decision line is like plus 350 on Bet Online. I didn't play it, but since I have so much on his money line, but if you're looking for an angle on him, I don't mind that at all. I think both guys are durable. I think normally in these bantamweight fights, they tend to go the distance, and I think plus 325 decision's good, but you can also plus 140 on the money line. I think that's solid as well. Probably my favorite dog on the whole card.
I love it. Bold take from Pierce, coming in hot. Got the analysis, got the breakdown, got the bet. Absolutely sensational. Gordo, what are you thinking about this matchup, my man? Do you agree? Do you disagree? We always say there's more than one way to skin a cat, bunch of different sharp ways to attack a fight. How do you feel about this one, my brother?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like if you have the conviction that someone like Pierce does in this spot to go for, this is one I do not have the utmost confidence in. And I'll skip right to the pick here. Is if gun to my head, if I had to choose a way this fight was going to go down, I do favor the David Martinez side slightly towards winning those optics here. I completely agree. Xavier Franklin is going to be the guy going forward. I think if there is wrestling exchanges, he will be the guy to go out there, potentially come on top. But I think in the style they both have, I do think David Martinez is the more battle-tested, proven striker here. I think I like his lateral footwork ability to move side to side, to get in and out of the exchanges. And although he may not have that same pure pop or aggression and maybe exciting style that Xavier Franklin does, I do think in a 15-minute kickboxing affair, to which I believe this fight to be, that Martinez has more experience at that, as someone who can manage their range, someone who can build to create his counters, and someone who can keep Xavier Franklin at bay. Now, I do not say that with the most conviction, like I mentioned, not one where I want to play him at minus 195, but I do think in a spot here, he is someone who I do think I like his experience and like his ability to succeed in the way I see this fight coming out. Now, yes, that plus money is a great line that Pierce got there. I'll power to him. And again, if you have the conviction he does, all power to him. But I know I've said that like 3 times, but truly do not have much more to add on this spot here. I do think when it comes down to it, the diverse weapons that Martinez has is enough to keep him at bay and utilize the footwork to stay off the cage, to stay off the ground, and keep this a kickboxing affair where I think he has some success. But man, a very tough fight to call. I think both these guys could have some potential success in the UFC, and I'm excited to see who goes out there and gets this one done. If the line continued to close, I don't think the experience of Martinez should make him an underdog outright, so might have to get to him there. But aside from that, I do not have much action on this one.
Okay, so what I'll say off the rip is I want to do a little bit more tape before I finalize my thoughts on this one. But right now, my inclination is with our brother Pierce. When you look at Xavier Franklin, here's what I like about him. Number one, deceptive record, 5-0. you look at his amateur results. He's got a bunch of amateur results. A lot of them are stoppages, guys. He's a dangerous striker. He's got power in his hands. Pierce mentioned it. He's not afraid of people. He walks them down. He comes forward. He's willing to take one to give one, but he normally is delivering back harder shots. He's normally the one slipping offline to land a couple back. And the thing that I will note is I think there is a path for Martinez in this fight. That's why I want to do a little more investigation, a little more research. This guy Martinez has excellent low kicks, in my opinion. That's the one thing I don't know that was touched on enough. His calf kicks are pretty good. And typically that's how he's kind of keeping guys at bay, right? He's moving in and out. He's using a little bit of lateral footwork. He's actually comfortable fighting on the back foot, which a lot of guys are not. So if you're going to pressure, the things that I want to see are you effective at pressuring or are you following people around? And I do think that Xavier has good pressure, right? He doesn't just allow people to exit and then he chases them down and, he's running laps after people. He's cutting them off with angled footwork. However, there's going to be some exchanges where he gets hit with hard calf kicks, especially in the first round, in my opinion. So for me, I want to see if I can find some more tape of his reactions. I have seen him get calf kicked. That's why I think it's a point of consideration. But in terms of what I liked about his game and why I think he could be effective, please, Pierce, go ahead.
I will say I don't know if you picked up on this. I was going to mention the calf kick narrative, but it seems like a lot of Martinez's kicks go to the thighs. He doesn't really go for the low calf kick. So that's just a little tidbit I thought I had.
Oh, interesting note. I will definitely go back and watch that more. In one fight that I watched, I'm trying to think, it might have been the Ozuna fight. He definitely threw a couple of calf kicks, but it might have been a anomalous performance in that regard. So I'll watch more tape. But the thing I was going to note about Xavier Franklin, is the guy I think can be a really sneaky submission threat. Something I pride myself on is trying to read these guys who have submission ability, but it's not super baked into lines because, they prioritize other things. He's a pressure forward striker, right? But what you've seen from him in the past is there was one fight that he had on his record, and I'm happy to share this on the screen right now, against Corey Sutcliffe. And guys, believe me when I say he could have TKO'd Corey Sutcliffe, but he said, I wanted to make a point of it. I'm better at mixed martial arts. I can go out there and submit these guys. I can knock them out. I can do whatever I want. And when you watch the fight, he does damage. He crumples guys. He's like looking for the takedown, getting a hold of him. And the way that he took the back, I really think was pretty special. Now, is it like, world-class jiu-jitsu or something like that? Not necessarily, but he's just fast, athletic. He knows what he wants. And when he initiated the back take, it's quickly going for hips down, hooks in, looking for the rear naked choke. And I think that that's an opportunity, right? I think you've seen Martinez fight out of some bad spots in the grappling, but on the Combate regional scene, that's a little bit different, right? We've seen some of those guys come into the UFC and get submitted, not have the grappling chops to hang. So I do think it's an open question on the Martinez side. I thought Pierce mentioned it. He had some, sketchy moments against Ozuna. He rallied. He did a great job. A lot of his finishes don't materialize, though, until rounds 3, rounds 4. He's an attritional guy. He's trying to break people down over time. And I do think Xavier is going to come out and start very hot. Taking your top knot says Xavier is a purple belt. Well, I will say, I think for a purple belt, he has very good MMA jiu-jitsu from what I saw. And what I mean by that is mostly instincts. A lot of guys don't have the right instincts to finish people when they're hurt. And one of the easiest ways to do it, you get somebody hurt with strikes and then you take their back quickly and you choke them out. And you do it while they're not thinking clearly, right? You get somebody foggy in the brain. They're not making great decisions. You choke them. And then when they come clear, it's already too late. Fist behind the head, chill out, tuck your chin, and it's all over, right? And I think that this guy, Xavier, can absolutely put him to sleep. Just put a choke on at some point in this contest and close the show. So for me, I think that he's probably the side at plus money. I think that he's got multiple paths to victory. I could see him winning by all methods. So for me, that's why I would be looking at it, just because it's so much plus money, right? 9-1. I'm sure domestics will open at 12, 15, something, very high. And I think that that's off. I think he has the opportunity if he decides to take it, right? On Contender Series, sometimes these guys go, I'm swinging to the death, right? They will not grapple. But I feel when you go for the path of least resistance, when you try and win the fight, if you're pressuring, one of the things you have to do in order to effectively pressure is initiate takedowns, whether you really commit to them or not, just to stop guys from, skirting around the octagon and disrespecting the pressure, right? How do you hold somebody against the fence? You initiate a takedown attempt, and then you just say, hey, chill out, hold you here, make you spend a little energy to pummel. Those are the kind of things I think you need to do to somebody who's going to be an explosive striker at distance. And I think put him against the fence, go ahead and hit, what's it called? Knee to the thigh. And I think that would be a great way to slow this guy down in round one, try and break him down with pressure, and look for the finish in round two with that rear naked choke. So that's kind of the way I see this going. Taz says MMA guru raid. God bless. I don't know what that means, but I appreciate it. All right, guys. Anything left to add on this fight, or should we move along to the next one, fellas?
I think it's just nice to say that they put together a decent fight for Dana White Contender Series. I know these high level fights are a rare occurrence nowadays, but shout out to them for actually doing proper scouting for this.
Yeah, I think this is a great fight, and I'm excited to do a little more tape on these guys, which I don't always say about some of these Contender Series fighters, right? But with that being said, folks, let's move along to the next one. We've got a featherweight contest, and it's going down between Alberto Montes and Carlos Calderon. You've got a 30-year-old in Montes taking on the 28-year-old in Carlos Calderon. Why don't we kick it off with our brother Gordo here? He's got the fist together. He looks excited. What do you think about this matchup, my brother?
Oh, I regret doing the fists already. No, I think Pierce went out there and just shouted out high quality fights. And man, this is something that I think is a bit harder to say that about this matchup. Let's put it that way. I think the previous matchup, maybe two guys who may have more success in the UFC. I think both these guys have their flaws in this matchup, but we have ourselves a fight nonetheless. And I do think it's a interesting spot to go out here and see how it comes together from a betting perspective. Carlos Calderon take this fight on short notice. I was not as impressed with the guy. I think he's a very solid submission guy. He's a guy who's able to go out here and potentially have success if the fight gets to the mat, but on the feet is a little bit slower, keeps his hands pretty low. It's there to be hit. And although he does have some decent grappling transitions, he is someone who's also able to be stuck from bottom position. So he's someone who I think has these flaws to go out there and struggle potentially at a higher level. But someone who, if he gets a weaker opponent, is able to get him to the mat, can have some success. Alberto Montes is a guy who I think has a more well-rounded skill set. I like his explosiveness. He was very able to go out there and strike many levels in the feet. And I think he was able to explode to positions, but he also wants to go out there and grapple. A very good opportunistic submission. He has a majority of his wins that way. And a guy who I think can also compete in all assets of MMA. Not only can he strike with explosiveness, but I do think he can be able to go out there, lock up the submission of his own right. He himself can be stuck in bottom position, but is also able to go out there and dominate from the top as well. When I look at breaking this fight down as a whole, although I think they're both guys who I will probably be fading at the UFC level, I think Montes has more paths getting it done here. I think he is the more diverse striker. I think he's somebody able to go out there and utilize his kicks, his flashy maneuvers, his power on the feet against a guy in Calderon who not only is taking this fight on short notice, but a guy who is there to be hit, a guy who does keep his hands low, a guy who I do think has his own flaws in the feet. Now, if this fight gets taken down to the ground where we're already able to get some scrambles, I do think Calderon is a very slick grappler. I just think Montes is able to keep his own. More times than not, I think Montes is able to get this done, more variety in his game. And I do think the line that is sticking out to me here is a guy like Montes by KO. Plus 500, pretty wide line. I do think that Calderon does keep his hands pretty low. Should be an interesting fight. Not my favorite one on the card, but that's all I got for you this one.
There you have it. Short, sweet, to the point. Love it. Pierce, what do you think of this matchup, my brother?
No, bro, they need to put me in contact with this guy's nutritionist, bro. What is this build, bro? I've never seen a back like that before, bro. This is like some next level goat shed supplements that they got going on there, bro. What the fuck? That's actually like bizarre. Like, why? He's like, I don't even know how to describe it.
Scapular
That's
winging, bro.
What, he's got the
weak
wings?
serratus
He's got the
anterior.
wings?
Yeah.
Hey, he gonna fly like an angel Tuesday, bro, and hit that KO for us. But yeah, man, these guys are awful. I don't know why. We go from wow, we have a high level fight, the last one with Franklin and Martinez, and then we go, how the fuck are these guys here? I mean, this Montez guy was supposed to fight fucking Robbie Ring. I don't know if you guys remember Robbie Ring from last year, bro. That I don't know what you're trying to say, Gordo, but I got cooked on Robbie Ring. So if you talking shit,
You
bro,
mean
that
the
brings up
GOAT,
bad.
bro?
Robbie Ring ain't my fucking GOAT, bro. Luis Puel. Nah, but what I was gonna say is I honestly don't know if they were bringing in Montez to lose to Robbie Ring, but yeah, I don't know. I think that just goes to show that they're matching him up with Robbie Ring. What the UFC thinks of this level of fight, and you bring in someone in Calderon who's like, I remember him from LFA when he fought this big tank of a man. I can't name's not coming to mind right now, but it was Curtis Ellis. That dude's just a spazzy athletic guy, and he got dropped in that fight, which I thought was interesting. And then he rallied back and found the sub. And I don't know, Calderon's just kind of like a wild card, man. He kind of just spazzes out on the mat, bro. He's definitely sub over position, man. I don't know if this guy knows how to pace himself on the mat. So I mean, maybe he can find a opportunistic back take and look for a submission against my boy Montez. But I can't get a good read on Montez, man. He's fighting kind of bums. He's kind of a Darce choke merchant. That's kind of his move. You see him go for it damn near fucking every fight is that Darce choke. But I get why I see a lot of people talking about taking a dog shot on Calderon. Well, when you watch like Montez, yeah, his tape is suspect as shit. But like, I don't know, someone in Calderon, man, he's just too much of a spaz for me to trust. If I'm playing Calderon, I'm playing the sub or I'm leaving it the fuck alone. But yeah, don't lay chalk on -260 Alberto Montez. This dude's kind of bummy, but I guess maybe a total, maybe go for the under 1.5, just considering the pace that Calderon said he's on like 2 weeks notice. So maybe he just goes out for the kill. And I think if you can get a fight ends by sub prop, fuck it. These guys are submission threats. It's not a bad idea. But I don't know if they offer that for Contender Series. But yeah, either guy by sub honestly isn't that bad.
I absolutely love where your head's at, Pierce, because I feel the same way. I think both of them have pretty good offense in terms of their, jujitsu systems, but I don't really trust their defense. When you look at the Alberto Montez side, he got flat knocked out by Ira Lukowski. And Ira Lukowski at the time was an undefeated 2-0 guy. He ended up going 3-3 as a pro. I don't know that he fights anymore. So I don't know that that loss has aged very well, right? That guy basically beat him by pressuring forward, being aggressive, making him miss a little bit. He kind of throws a lot of wild kicks and stuff from the outside. He can be made to miss with the striking, that's for sure. And then when you look at the grappling, there were some weird transitions in his fights. I had mentioned it on somebody else's tape. The Richie Santiago choke I thought was beautiful. He definitely has great technique on that anaconda choke. I think that is by far and away his best technique. I would not be surprised if he submits that long neck giraffe across from him with that anaconda choke. But when you look at the Carlos Calderon side, he's not a bad jiu-jitsu player. Like if you had to credit like one part of his game that is good, he has a very active guard game. He takes a lot of risks. I do think that could lead to him getting finished. Especially like you mentioned, Pierce, on short notice, when you're really active from the guard like that, it's very taxing on your cardio, especially if the other guy knows how to grapple too. And I do think that this guy could just take his back at some point and choke him because he's got that giraffe neck. So anaconda choke or rear naked choke. But Calderon is a little bit tricky. He throws up that omoplata series, which is not common in MMA. If you have a suspect game in your own right, if you make any mistakes on the ground, you could end up in some dicey situations, back takes, leg entanglements, all sorts of weird positions. And looking at Calderon's record, he's got a bunch of guillotine chokes. The Motaz Oscar fight, he did lose that fight, but he had a bunch of moments of success there as well in terms of implementing a triangle choke that looked to be very tight at one point. And his opponent just toughed it out, stayed in it, and was able to like gas him out. So I think that's the path here is, if Montez is going to win this fight, he might be in some ugly situations in the grappling early. If they just strike it out, I think it's a much more even fight just because they're both going to be throwing wild kicks and, kind of acting the fool. I think they're both at their best when they're in their grappling element. So for me, that's the way I see the fight. I think if it's a guard matchup, if it's one guy on top in the full guard, then Calderon's probably going to have a lot of success. Honestly, he's very good from down there and very active. He throws up elbows. He makes it uncomfortable. But I think that if it's, dynamic front headlock positions, you're probably going to see Montez come away with the win. I think he's a little bit smoother from there. His opponent's got a massive neck, like I mentioned. So it's a big target area, right? And I would just say as a guillotine merchant myself, I think that that's something that, would instantly draw my attention, right? To see my opponent looks like a giraffe. I'd be thinking to myself, if I could put some pressure on that neck, it's going to be a really bad situation for him. So
Hey.
that for me is where you have an opponent on short notice with that tough anthropomorphic reality, right? Which is just that he's got an extremely long neck. That's a huge target. Please go ahead.
You just got to share some of that with Torres Finney is all I got to say, man. You donate a bit of that neck. Maybe we can get that submission in that El Rami fight. But no, I'm with you, man. That is definitely out there.
Hell yeah, man. All right. So if that's all that we've got for this fight, then we can move along to the main event of the evening, fellas. And let's go ahead and bring it up. We've got an international main event. We've got DR Nurgozayev taking on Bartosz Sezuski. And this is a closely lined matchup. It's going down in the light heavyweight division. And we will bring up the face-off as well here between these large gentlemen. And here it is. So we've got the big boys swinging it down at 205. And both these guys have about 10 professional fights apiece, 9 professional fights, 9 professional wins for DR Nurgozayev. And Bartosz Sezuski is 8-2-1. Gordo, why don't you start us off, my brother? What do you think about this fight?
All right. Yeah, this main event's definitely an interesting one. Going out there and watching both these fighters, I don't necessarily think they are the most talented fighters in all aspects, but I think they bring entertaining fights. I think there's a reason why they're the main event here, because they do go out there, typically put on, entertaining spots where there's a highlight reel knockouts at opportunities. But I think we've got a really big different class of styles. I think we have the pure striker here in Bartosz, who does have the ability to go out there and counter strike. He does have a lot of power. Like, the dude is a terrifying striker who's able to go out there and knock people's head off, but he seems to be limited to that. His volume to me is pretty inconsistent. I think he is someone who it was okay to counter strike when he feels a better striker, is willing to blitz in and put more volume out there when he has to. But someone who is going to want to keep this fight on the feet, look to take your head off, and he has had good opportunities doing so. DR looks like a guy who, although has fought lower level competition, seems to have the physicality, the well-rounded skill set to go out there and win this fight in multiple aspects. And I think he is a guy who I would consider more well-rounded of the two. He is very dominant from top position. Shall he get there? He is someone who has the ability to get people out of there if he gets on top. His wrestling is maybe not the best, but it's something he will go to sometimes. And on the feet, although he doesn't have that same counter striking as someone like Bartosz, will go forward, will throw the fight any attention. I do not necessarily like the optics of the cardio of DR. I do think he does slow down visually, although he does able to go out there and fight through it. But I do think he has a more versatile attack in the spot here. And I do think he has the potential to go out there, not only finish the fight from top position, but swing with a guy like Bartosz. And I do think that although the knockout could be there on the flip side of things for the power and the size of someone like Bartosz here, I do think that the difference in the potential grappling or paths to victory is wider than the striking here. And for that reason, I did slightly side with the DR Nurgozayev side here. It isn't with the utmost conviction. I have some other spots on this card here, but I do think he has more paths getting it done. I do think he goes forward and looks to win moments that way too. And although the volume of Bartosz is hit or miss, it's not really necessarily the highest pace to go out there and I think tire out a DR as much as you need to in this spot. I do think DR is able to go out there, win the moments, win the physicality, and look to potentially put the lights out of someone like Bartosz, being a solid athlete with some good physicality here. I think it's a close fight. I think both these guys have their flaws defensively. Both these guys have really powerfully offensively. And I do think those signs point towards an early finish. However, I do not have the most bullish read on this. I did pick DR to get it done.
There you have it. So quick, easy, to the point. Pierce, how do you feel about this matchup? It's going down in the light heavyweight division. Two big boys swinging it out. What do you think about this one?
Yeah, I played some Bartosz save check at about like plus 140 on Sunday as well. I honestly feel like it's kind of annoying doing this on a Monday night when the lines are kind of more mature now, but I feel like Pick'em's honestly where I would cap this fight. We got someone in DR who maybe, yeah, he's got a more well-rounded game of the two, but honestly, I feel like he's very hittable on the feet. I feel like he leaves a lot of openings in the striking aspect of the game. And Bartosz, the one thing he's good at is he's athletic. He's got a good 1-2. He's straight. He's got good straight punches, and I honestly feel like that 1-2 is going to be landing at will. And if I'm betting DR, I'm honestly probably hoping he can hit takedowns here. And I guess just my thought process on why I think it's a pick 'em. I think Bartosz has good movement for light heavyweight. Obviously, you can see he's in great shape, and I feel like he can sprawl. He's got a good initial sprawl. It's just the only issue is there's not so much tape of him dealing with like chain takedowns. And I don't know. I just don't think DR is like some amazing chain wrestler where if he gets on top, I mean, he honestly has decent jiu-jitsu for a light heavyweight. I will say I've seen him go for some interesting sub attacks. I think he was going for like a go-go plata or something in one of his fights, which is you don't see that at light heavyweight much. But I don't know. Someone in Bartos, I think he's going to have a lot better speed. He's going to be a lot faster on the feet. And if he can keep it standing, man, I think he's going to piece this guy. And he can honestly maybe find a finish here. I was a bit surprised at the face-offs, how much bigger Bartos was than DR. It seemed like DR either, I don't know, he didn't look like the guy I saw when I was taping his regional fights. He looks like he lost some fat though, but I don't know if he hopped off some steroids that he was on, bro. But my man Bartos, he looks a bit messed up in the head, but I mean he looks ready for battle. I'll tell you that much. And someone told me this. I don't know the truth to it, but I think he's right. So Emiliano Sordi, who DR beat his last fight, he's actually in his corner for DR, which is fucking hilarious. The dude you just beat is going to be cornering you. So, maybe there's some fishy business going on in UAE Warriors there because Emiliano Sordi looked awful that fight. So I don't want to even take much from that. That was a wash Sordi that he beat. So, yeah, Pick'em's fine with me, honestly, in this matchup.
Before Liam goes out here and breaks the tie, I will go out here and fully admit when there are fights who are close, I got a soft spot for the wrestlers. I am a pure, a primary DraftKings player, so I like my wrestlers. And although I completely agree with what Pierce is saying about the striking on the feet, I do like the guys who have the opportunity to go out there and mix it throughout. So getting plus money like Pierce did it yesterday is definitely an interesting look at it. However, the way the line is now, I did side with a Kazakh who can take it down to the ground.
Local man shakes fist says in the chat, I was also expecting DR to be bigger and less staffy. I didn't see anything about a staph infection, so I don't
People
know.
were saying his chest. I didn't watch the actual weigh-ins, but they were saying his chest, it looked like he had a bad staph infection. I can't tell from that video, but maybe there's a different clip that they're talking about.
All right, guys, time to investigate. So if we scroll up, we're going to share this tab instead. If we scroll up in our navigation dock, we've got our weigh-in highlight. Bam. And all right, here we go. I was sharing the wrong tab and I'm still somehow sharing the wrong tab. Give me a second, guys. Here we go. Now we've got what we need. I'm just going to the right part of the video so we don't get nerfed off of YouTube for taking somebody else's content. Okay, here we go. I'd like to see them zoom out a little bit. Okay, here we go. No, that was a horrible camera angle to show it. Man, they really butchered it, guys. Okay, here we go. This is the best we're going to do. You guys see what they're talking about? It's really hard to see.
No, it looked like he got a gunshot wound right there in the middle of his tits.
Yeah, he's got a little something going on. Dogfather says, yeah, he looks like he had staph, kind of healed up though. Yeah, very possible. Could be a pimple, but yeah, it doesn't look great. It doesn't look great. So now we could definitely get that off the screen out of respect for the viewer. But yeah, that's what they're talking about when they say less staffy. So certainly something you want to be concerned about in that regard. I will say this. I watched the Konstantin and Dritsev fight for DR, and he dominated that fight, right? He went out there, he landed a lot of huge shots. He fought for 5 rounds. He got a lot of takedowns. He made a couple mistakes in the grappling, gave up a couple bad positions, but was able to recover each time, not make any catastrophic error. So he was able to always recover. And looking at the Bartos Suzuki side, I watched his fight with, I'm trying to look back, Ahmed Salamov, right? And Ahmed Salamov was taking him down pretty easily in the early going and getting to good positions and kind of doing what he wanted. But that guy was no good. So he kept falling over the top and making bad decisions. And please go ahead.
He's good, bro. He's good, bro. He beat the GOAT, Robert Valentine, bro. So it's not a bad win.
All right, fair play. I will say this though. What I saw from that guy was he was not prepared for the cardiovascular commitment that he had made that evening, right? He was ready to fight for 5 minutes and he looked great. And then as the fight kept getting extended, he had a heel hook that I thought was dead to rights at one point. And I will say this guy Bartos is not a quitter. If you put him in a heel hook, right, he's not just going to give up. He's going to see it out to the end and try and kick off. And he moved all around the cage and rolled like 3-4 times. So he showed a lot of courage in that fight. I don't think he's a guy who's going to be easy to get out of there. But then you look at the fight he lost via rear naked choke. It was against a way more experienced opponent, but he just shows some inexperience in the grappling. There's many instances in his tape where he gets taken down, where he gives up bad positions, and a lot of these guys haven't been able to make him pay. I could, foresee that this being the fight where the rubber kind of meets the road a little bit. This guy's both aggressive with his strikes and willing to look for subs, willing to jump on the back, willing to look for the rear naked choke. And sometimes it costs him, right? He had his opponent so bloody, he went for a rear naked choke. The guy just turned in to face him. I was like, damn. And that's where some guys break mentally, but he was able to continue just pushing, right? Keep going in the fight. And I thought that was an admirable quality. So DR is the guy who's never lost. I do think you favor him slightly in this contest, but I understand what Pierce is saying. Line should be close. Two guys that both have a set of skills. The thing I'll say about Bartos that's impressive is his takedown defense kind of gets better as he gets a read on you, as he starts to see what you're trying to do. So the first couple of takedowns, I think they're going to be like free 99. But if he gets back up to his feet and tries to, continue to make him work, he does a better job down blocking, reading his opponent's entries on the follow-up attempts. And I did see him making those adjustments in real time. The way he beat that Russian cat who was better at grappling than he was by sticking it out in the cardio and eventually going to basic maneuvers like the go behind, like trying to just put two hooks in. You don't have to be the better grappler to get somebody tired and choke them out. It's just that simple. And especially in MMA where you could also punch them, knee them, make them tired by artificial means. In a grappling match, it takes a lot of time, right? You got to hold on. You got to do all these things. You got to make them tired from control, from top position, from smothering, from pressure. Whereas in a fight, you can just punch them like 10 times. They're going to be exhausted, right? It's a much easier way to chip away at the gas tank. So for me, that's kind of where I foresee some big problems is in the early going. I think DR is going to have an opportunity to just get good positions and potentially finish the fight. But if the fight gets extended, I think that's where the underdog starts to come into play here. He's a guy that builds into his fights. He starts to feel himself. And I don't think the opponents that DR has fought in the past were able to hurt him. They were able to make him work. They were able to keep him, going through these paces over the 3 rounds, over the 5 rounds. But when you look at, were they able to hurt him? Were they able to put some doubt in his mind? Most of them were not. And I think that this Bartos guy can. Like Pierce mentioned, simple 1-2, but it's fast, it's effective. He looks like he's a roid head. It's so funny to me always watching Polish MMA. I love the Poles, right? No hate on the Poles, but they always got 16 different tattoos of different brands on themselves, and they all look roided to the absolute gills. So Bartos, never know what supplementation he's on, but he looked very good at the face-off to the point of our guy. And if his opponent has staff, that's only going to hurt your cardio, right? So I think that for DR, he might come out hot. He might come out aggressive, trying to put the fight away before things get out of hand in a cardiovascular perspective. But for his sake, he has gone 5 rounds in fairness. But great matchup. Not the best fight you've ever seen, but I'm actually interested to see how this one shakes out. Among light heavyweights, there's not a lot of prospects to get excited about. You got a 9-0 guy from Kazakhstan. Maybe there's just something in the water, but let's see, because he's got a tough task in front of him. And, he's a guy that's been on the Eagle FC scene, which is a little bit, hit and miss, right? Sometimes you see some good talent come off of there, and sometimes you see some Russian hype jobs that didn't really have the skills. So let's see how it plays. Guys, let's close it out like we always do with a quick recap. We're going to kick it to my guy, Gordo Gambles. If you guys aren't aware, right now we are live streaming simultaneously on my channel, Liam Picks Fights, as well as the Plays and Fades YouTube channel. We got plenty of people checking in from there. If you haven't already, make sure you get subscribed. Make sure you show some love to our guy, Gordo Gambles, over there, putting out great content on these fights each and every week. So shout out to Gordo. Please let the people know what you've got going on this week in terms of content. And also, what's your wrap up on this card, my man? What do you think is the summary in terms of the fights for you?
Yeah, for sure. As always, man, I love talking these Dana White Contender Series bouts with you. It's been a few years going on, and it's always something to look forward to. So hopefully we're able to close out the year strong. Again, Plays the Fades YouTube channel. I also do work with Established to Run. So big UFC pay-per-view card coming up. A lot of content, busy time of year, and you can't complain because we got some good fights, and I'm looking forward to them. As for this DWCS Week 8 card, we get the fight I started with a Canadian, one where we want to see him succeed. We are still searching the next George St. Pierre, the next guy to go out there. And unfortunate news, I don't necessarily think Christian Savoy is that guy. I know, hot take this week. I don't think he's the next GSP coming out there, but what he is a brawler, a newfie brawler who I do think has a lot of power. And in a spot like this is going to be the more battle-tested guy, the guy you do not want to run into at a bar, but is facing a very hyped-up prospect here for good reason. A guy in Smith who does have a college wrestling pedigree, a very good one at that. Someone who has fallen in love with his hands recently, but a guy who I do think is the A side of this matchup, very talented. I do think for that reason, Jacoby Smith should be favored. I love Christian Savoy, but he does give up those takedowns. I do think Smith should be able to go out there and have success, use that physicality, have the better hand speed on the feet as well, and win this fight at a high clip. I see some value potential on that submission line for Smith at plus 1,000. We'll see where the lines climb to. Finney, El Rami, I like Finney. I truly do. Do not get me wrong, but I think the line is wide. Finney is being chirped by someone like Dana White, being told to go out there and do more. And I do think Arami is someone who can go out there and swing with him. Taurus Finney has been hurt. He's been put in precarious situations. And if he wants to go out there and entertain someone like Dana White, Arami's not the best guy to go out there and swing with. And I do think Arami has KO capabilities. I think he can win this fight more than the line entails. And I also think the under is a good look. I love Finney, but in a matchup like this, I think the line's wide and there's some value on the underdog. The next one's one I think is a very close fight. David Martinez, Xavier Franklin. I think the striking, the ability to control range, the lateral movement, the leg kicks, some of Martinez that kind of think can win on this fight. I do think there's the better minute winner for that regard. And I do think he is someone who has the capability to go out there and win this fight. Xavier Franklin, I think, is someone who is still improving his game, does potentially have more grappling upside, but in a fight that I think is going to be a 15-minute kickboxing affair where the guy who manages range better is going to get it done, I do favor the experience, the pedigree, and the versatility of someone like David Martinez get it done, and he's my slight pick in that matchup. Calderon Montes, I don't think neither guy is necessarily going to make waves in the UFC. I think Montes just has more ability to get it done. He's more well-rounded. Calderon is a very slick submission grappler, but I do think Montes has more ability to go out there and use his versatility. I do not like the defensive skill set of Calderon. I think he's hittable on the feet. I think he's there to be rocked, and I do think that Montes has more ability to mix it up with different levels, utilize some kicks, utilize some powerful punches, and I do think the KO line for Montes is wide. However, a low-level affair. Do not put too much of your hard-earned money on it. In the main event, I do think it's a very close one. Like Pierce alluded to, the striking is there for Bartosz. I think he's a very solid striker, very physical athlete as well. But I do think in this matchup, DR has more paths going to get done. I like his grappling. I like his ability to push the pace, utilize his physicality, and win minutes that way. And I think in the spot here where he can compete with looping shots as well, the wrestling will set him apart. Very good ground and pound ability to go out there and take that top position. And I do think at a pick, I'm gun to my head, I do pick the Kazakhstan prospect. So give me DR in that one. Very fun fight. I know people ask for Hail Marys all the time, so mine's pretty simple this week. 2 legs, both plus money. Give me Jacoby Smith sub and Alberto Montes KO. A plus 1,000 with a plus 500. It's a Hail Mary for a reason.
I absolutely love it. Killing the game today, Gordo. Killing the solo shot live transitions as well. Plays and Fades YouTube channel. Go show some love. The Great White North, our brother from another, Gordo Gambles. We've been doing this a lot of years. We've been doing it at a pretty high level, in my humble opinion. So if you guys enjoy the content, drop a like over here. If you've got the due diligence, the bandwidth, go over and drop a like on the Plays and Fades YouTube channel. Show some love over there, and make sure you hit that subscribe button if you want great knowledge about mixed martial arts, DraftKings, daily fantasy. Go ahead and get that knowledge from our guy Gordo. And if you don't mind, show some love on Establish the Run for our guy Gordo as well. Putting out a great product with our guy Brett Apley, another sharp mind in the space. So shout out. Now, without further ado, the moment you've all been waiting for, it's the recap from our guy Pierce. Big Bird in the building. His Contender Series reads are that of legend. My brother from another. What do you got? What is the W recap for the W stream? Shout out to Larry for that. I appreciate you.
You know, we're gonna start off the W recap with easy lock in the first fight. We're not picking the Canadian, system play, fade Canadian MMA. I'm sorry, Gordo. It's gotta happen. But yeah, my man Jacoby Smith, man. If you guys want a parlay piece, I can't help but think this guy's like 95% here. Slip on a banana peel type of fight for me. Takedowns will be free. I'm gonna wait to see for props on domestics to see what angle to play the fight. But yeah, if you guys want I got a Bet MMA tips, oil check MMA. It's all free bets. So if you want to see what other props I had for that fight, just give that a follow. And yeah, nothing on that fight for now. Torres Finney versus Rami. I mean, this is a proper dog or pass. It's just Finney makes too many mistakes in the striking realm for me to trust this guy. I know obviously he's the wrestler now, but who knows? Maybe third fight on Contender Series, he might switch up the game plan and look for the knockout. And I think Gordo alluded to it. You don't want to get in a brawl with Rami. I think, well, Finney can crack. I mean, honestly, both these guys have finishing potential here. But yeah, honestly, think if I had to make a play on that fight, it would probably be the under, or maybe just a small play on Rami, but nothing too passionate on that fight just because we don't know enough about Rami's grappling. And then Martinez versus Franklin. I got to play on Xavier Franklin at a better number, but honestly, I see the lines kind of coming back to plus 155. So maybe some David Martinez fight day money comes in on the hyped up prospect, but I can't help but think that fight's a pick 'em as well. I think Franklin's forward pressure, speed, and body work is going to be crucial here. Maybe Martinez can, weasel on the outside, land some low kicks, as that's probably the weapon that's going to be the most beneficial for him. But I don't know. I like this guy, Xavier Franklin. I like how he is going to push a pace here. And it's a classic minutes versus moments type of fight where Xavier is going to be winning the minutes. As long as he can, that chin checks out, I feel like we're going to be on the value side. Maybe sprinkle that decision prop on Xavier as well. And then Calderon versus Montez. This is a 1-800 gambler fight. Bummy, bummy, bummy. And I understand why Montez is the favorite. He's a lot more. He makes less mistakes is probably the best way to put it. My man Calderon's kind of spazzy. He'll go for subs from the start of the fight. So, maybe if you want to play Calderon, I say just play a submission prop or just leave it alone because it's probably most of his path. My man Montez, I think maybe we could fish out a live bet on him, honestly. I feel like Calderon on short notice, the way he fights could be prime position the gas out and maybe get subbed later in the fight. But yeah, no passionate take there. And then DR versus Shevchek. I got my boy Bartos there. I played him on the money line as well. I think his striking speed and athleticism is gonna, it's gonna give DR some problems early, and I think you guys touched on it. DR probably needs takedowns, I think, because I think on the feet he's probably going to be at a speed disadvantage and could get hurt really bad with a 1-2 down the middle. But if Bartos can sprawl, like Liam said, maybe extend it a little bit. He's at least I've seen him face adversity in his career. This man DR is just cage pushing fucking fat guys in Eagle FC. So I don't really know what to think of this guy, man. I think Bartos is a guy that's 26 years old. They're both pretty young, but I see this man Bartos making improvements from fight to fight, whereas like DR, he's fought like 3 times in like 3 years. So it's like I can only take so much away from him beating up on a washed Emiliano. Sorry. So yeah, Bartos are passed for me, but not a passionate take at Pick'em. Maybe if you want to get a little cute with it, Bartos late KO could be a sneaky play.
Heck yeah, brother. So there you have it, guys. We've got the recap from Gordo. We've got the recap from Pierce. Before we move forward, we're going to look back for just 1 second. Last week, we had in the strategy guide, Vallejos round 1 plus 300, shouted out as a potential angle, and he goes out there and delivers. Kevin Christian via sub in round 1 or 2, and he goes out there and absolutely ships it. Christian via sub plus 320, shouted out. Christian round 2 plus 550, shouted out. If you were a real philosopher, you went out there and you hit the sub 2 as well at whatever price that was, probably plus 1900 or something crazy. Then we talked about Frunza being a live underdog here, especially the KO at plus 350. And in the main event, I was dead wrong. I thought Schoenfelder was going to get it done, and unfortunately, he did not get to extend that one. But we celebrate the wins. We own the losses. Last week was a good week of reads. Let's see if we could do it again. I'm going to start off with the first fight of the night. Let's get back here in Tapology, and we'll share this screen so everybody has an idea of what we're working with here. So for the first fight of the night, we've got the wrestler, the All-American Jacoby Smith taking on the Canadian Christian. Here we go. Sevelier. And I think that this is going to be Jacoby Smith probably mauling our friend Sevelier, unfortunately. I think that Sevelier has a chance to win because Jacoby Smith is sometimes a little wild with his brawling. He's a little bit reckless. He's a little bit, willing to swing in the pocket. But I think he's got the athletic upside. I think he's the guy who has better takedowns. I think he's the guy who has a better ground game, better control on the mat. I think he could do more damage from the top position. And I think that as long as he fights a smart game plan, like I expect him to, Kyle Crutchmer in the corner, a lot of guys from the Oklahoma State, lineage have done very well at the UFC level. Think Daniel Cormier, think Johnny Hendricks. This is a fighting culture, right? That they come out of this school and they're ready to fight more often than not. So yeah, Nick Piccinini came in with a few less fights, maybe had a tough time on Contender Series. For my money, I think Jacoby Smith is just as serious a prospect. Nick Piccinini is in a tougher weight class, right? By and large, just globally more competitive in my view. And I think that when you're looking at the welterweight class, Jacoby Smith has a lot of upside. When he gets these guys to the ground, they're going to have a hard time getting their wits back about him because he throws a lot of heavy ground and pound quickly. And that's why a lot of these guys aren't making it to round 2. So for me, I think it's a fun fight, good scrap. And Local Man asks, how is the under still plus 140? I think that's an interesting question, right? Maybe that does mean that the odds makers think it could get a little bit more extended here. But I also think Savalier could get, just beat up over the course of, 10 minutes here. He's a tough guy. He's a willing guy. He looks like he showed up in great shape. But if you can't stop the takedown, you can't stop the takedown. And that's ultimately what I see in this matchup. In the next matchup, I'm going to differ with my co-host just a little bit in saying, not that I think Torres Finney's a lock and you should put him in every parlay or anything like that. But I think that he has a chance to go out here and knock this guy out in the first round. I think the UFC gave him a matchup where this guy's willing to swing. This guy's willing to take some big chances. He's a risk taking fighter in his own right. He's fought a pretty low level of competition. I think to Torres Finney's credit, he's fought a little bit tougher guys. He's fought a diversity of styles, and he does have some physical limitations, right? He is 5'8". He's not a big guy, but I think that he's got power in his hands. I think that's natural. I think if he gets this guy to the ground, he can deliver hellacious ground and pound to him. So for me, I just feel like there is upside for Torres Finney to come out here and just smash this guy early, quickly. But I also think there's risk, in taking that approach, that he could get finished on the back end. I don't know that his cardio is worthy of prime time. However, if you have, Dana White on your ass about your cardio is not ready for UFC level, if you're not doing wind sprints every day, if you're not like on the road doing your work, then I don't really know if this is the career for you, right? Because he got the ass chewing that you're supposed to get before the best performance of your career. So for me, I think that's what I'm expecting from Torres Finney, but I also think that you're being asked to pay the price for that. And the price has come down substantially, right? So the market is less bullish on him now than they were for his last couple matchups. And I can understand why. He struggled a little bit, but I still think that there was a reason people were hyped on him before. And I think that it's because at his best, he's got athletic upside. He's got the power to knock you out, and he can take you down, throw you around, dominate you physically. And when you're that low to the ground, can somebody get underneath him? Are they going to take him down? It's going to be very difficult to get that going. So unless he makes mistakes, unless he falls over the top, those kind of things, he should have a lot of advantages against guys because of a low center of gravity in the wrestling and the grappling. With that being said, we'll move to the next fight where I think Xavier Franklin is a live underdog as well. I think David Martinez has dangerous low kicks. I think he's got pretty crafty striking. I'm questioning his grappling. I'm questioning what happens if he gets put in some dangerous situations with Xavier pressing forward, using his extreme pressure, right? He comes forward, he uses lateral footwork, he cuts off the angles, and he's going to try and force this guy into a heavy boxing match. He's got a lot of knockouts on his record, but also when he hurts guys, when guys start making bad decisions or trying to wrestle reactively because they're getting pressured, he's very good at wrestling back into them, taking them down, beating them up. And I saw a very nice rear naked choke on his resume. It's against a lower level opponent, but I saw the right fundamentals. I think he's got finishing instincts. I think he can win this fight inside the distance. I think we've seen Martinez tested by the best guys he fought regionally. And I think a lot of the guys he fought regionally didn't have enough to offer him. I think this is where the rubber meets the road. He can win. He's got the striking to do it, but I think his path is a close decision more often than not. Whereas I think that Xavier Franklin has a chance to go out there and win this by all methods. So for me, that's what makes him a live underdog in this spot. Alberto Montez and Carlos Calderon is a fight where I think both guys have a chance to submit one another. So for that reason, I guess, it's a dog or pass situation for me. I do think that Montez, he can be made to look bad, right? He had an inexperienced opponent, a guy with less experience than him come out there, make him miss, make him look bad, and then knock him out silly, knocked him cold in that fight. So do I think somebody could come in there and kind of swing reckless and put him down? Yes. And also, I think that when you look at the grappling, I do favor him. He does have a slightly shorter neck, and he's got a little bit more high percentage finishes with the front headlock series. But I think that Carlos Calderon, for guard playing in MMA, is pretty damn competent from down there. So in terms of like guys you want to go out there and just power grapple, you might make a mistake with this guy one time and end up in a bad situation, triangle choke, an arm bar, and not be able to recover. So for me, that's why, it's a live underdog situation, but he's got the short notice. There's a couple things putting me off. So ends by sub. Pierce shouted it out before. It's not open anywhere. When it opens up, I think that's something that you want to at least consider in this matchup, because both guys, that's how they like to get it done. That's how they're going to look to do it. And both of them look to have Giraffe next to me. So let's see if somebody can latch on a choke here. And I also think both of them could get hurt on the feet. That's a club and sub opportunity. We saw it in the main event last week. What was it, 35-1 that the guy was to win by submission? And was he better at jiu-jitsu? Probably not. Does it matter when somebody's rocked? No, it does not. So it's just something to keep in the back of our minds. And then the last fight, guys, DR Nurtgozayev. I am going to pick him to win, but I'm not going to pick him with an extreme amount of confidence. I do think that Bartos has decent takedown defense as the fight goes on. I think he builds into a fight. I think he's a guy that has some idea of what he needs to do to win. I've seen him go out there against better grapplers, pace them, and then defeat them on the ground. So that's a vote of confidence there. But I've seen this other guy, DR, go for 5 rounds. I've never seen him lose. I've seen him out there exchanging on the feet. I've seen him say, hey, you know what? This guy's trying to land back on me. I'm going to take him down. I've seen him make a lot of the right decisions under pressure, I felt. And when I saw him make a mistake, end up in a bad position, he didn't panic. He didn't get overwhelmed, and he was able to recover every time. So for me, I just think that you see one guy in Bartos who has probably fought a little bit more resistance, but you've seen those elements fall apart for him at times, the grappling, the takedown defense, the decision-making on the ground. And I think that on the other side for DR, I think if this is a striking matchup, it's going to be a lot closer. But I think his decision-making on the ground is superior. I think his ability to pass is probably superior. So I think that DR is probably going to have his way if he's able to wrestle and grapple. But we saw what Schoenfelder was going to have his way if he got to wrestle and grapple, right? In our projections and everybody's thought for how the fight was going to go. It's a fight. It starts on the feet. 2 guys swinging at each other. They're both nervous as shit. It's the biggest moment of their life, and they've got a lot of money on the other side of this outcome. So for them, it's a high pressure situation, and you could see a lot of things go wrong. So for me, that's why I don't like big chalk in any regard on the Contender series. But as this line narrows, it does seem to me like I understand why DR is a slight favorite here as the undefeated fighter, who I think, has an ability to mix up the wrestling and the grappling. Staph infection, I don't know if I want to touch it, right? That's burnt me before. So there you have it, guys. That's the recap. I'm going to cut everything with timestamps. And if you guys are interested in UFC 307 content, we got that for you on the channel. We did the first look earlier. My guy Pierce was on my ass. He's saying, yo, how are you going to go on and do the Contender Series stream? All we've done is tape today since then, right? So we did a little tape before the show. We went on, talked UFC 307. Now we're back. We talked about Contender Series. We're going to get some more research done. We're going to come back for bets and banter later in the week, and it's going to be a great time as always. I appreciate my guests. I appreciate the sharpest people in the chat who are rocking with us always. Cole Stein, Local Man Shape Says, Larry, Alan, Ghost Gardeners, Frank, everybody else. I appreciate you all so much for being here. God bless you all. Enjoy those fights and come back next time because we're doing it all again. Thanks, everybody.